Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really profound question,
A difficult one.
a difficult one, yeah. How do you find hope when your life feels completely finished?
When you feel like you've hit a dead end.
Exactly. And you sent over this source material, New Hope, which is built around this ancient image from the prophet Isaiah, and we just knew we had to dig into its central paradox.
It's really an exploration into unexpected renewal. I mean, the core text we're looking at, Isaiah 11.1, says, "A shoot will spring from the stem of Jesse."
Right.
Now, anyone hearing that for the first time, it might sound like, beautiful poetry, but maybe a little abstract.
But our mission today is to cut right through that abstraction. We're going to understand how this seemingly simple image, a shoot from a stem, can act as a practical guide.
A roadmap,
A
almost.
roadmap for you to reframe your own experiences of loss, of devastation, and it shows you exactly where to look for growth when every sign points to, well, an absolute dead end.
We're going to break down both the physics and the psychology of finding those tiny, easily overlooked signs of life, often in places you've already written off.
And to do that, we have to start with the most uncomfortable part.
The devastation itself.
Let's unpack this. The source really spends a lot of time defining that initial condition, the stem or the stump of Jesse.
Right.
If we just think about a cut-down tree in the real world, what's the key difference between a stump and, say, a tree that just lost a branch?
Well, it's the difference between an injury and structural finality. A tree that loses a branch is hurt, sure, but the main trunk, the root system, it's all still intact. It still looks like a tree.
It's recognizable.
It's recognizable. But a stump is what's left after that whole magnificent structure has been violently removed. It's just stripped bare. It's this dense hardwood that looks completely inert.
It's like a burial marker.
Exactly, a marker for something that was once alive.
That's a powerful distinction. It's not about temporary damage. It's about a feeling of total collapse. And the source takes that physical image, the dead block of wood, and applies it straight to our mental and emotional world.
It does. When people talk about feeling cut down, they're usually talking about a loss that hits them at a foundational level.
The root system.
Right, a shock to the root system of their identity, their security. The source suggests this stump can mirror profound experiences like the shock of a debilitating chronic illness that suddenly redefines your entire future.
It also brings up the loss of trust, betrayal, a broken relationship that wasn't just damaged, but, fundamentally severed.
Yes, that kind of loss leaves a stump. It cuts into the core of your shared history, your future promise. The relationship isn't just on pause, the whole structure that supported it is just gone.
And what about the slower burns?
Then you have the more insidious, grinding forms of devastation, like crippling financial insecurity that just strips away your dignity, or the deep, deep exhaustion of battling addiction.
I think we often overlook the emotional weight of that stump. When you look at the raw data, your bank account, the medical reports, the empty chair, it just screams finality.
It feels silent, heavy.
And structurally incapable of ever producing life again. You're not just sad, you're convinced that part of your life is now permanently barren.
And that sense of permanence is key. That's what the prophet is speaking into. The sheer weight of that barrenness makes your mind categorize that whole area of your life as over.
So you stop tending to it.
You stop believing in it. Because visually, logically, scientifically even, it looks like a dead end.
So the source is making the devastation sound that absolute. If there's no natural way for life to return, then the only way forward has to be something radical.
It has to be.
And that brings us to the most disruptive image in the text. The shoot.
This is the critical shift. This is everything. Isaiah doesn't offer pep talk or, some empty platitude. He offers a biological disruption.
I like that. A disruption.
He speaks directly into that scene of total desolation and promises that from this inert, dead-looking stump, a shoot will emerge.
It's the ultimate counter image, isn't it? You're expecting rot, silence, dust maybe.
And instead you get this fragile, tiny piece of green.
But the scale here is so vital.
Yeah.
This isn't the universe magically restoring the giant oak tree overnight.
Absolutely critical. The text is very specific. It's a shoot or a sprig, not a fully mature branch. We are not talking about some spectacular, instantaneous rescue.
Nope.
We are talking about something microscopic, vulnerable, something you could easily crush under your foot. I mean, think about the force it takes for a tiny, soft piece of life to push its way through ancient, hardened, dead wood.
And that's the paradox. We expect regeneration to look like this giant construction project, a total overhaul that everyone can see.
Right.
But the source is telling us that the real foundation of renewal often begins in the quietest, most private corner of our life.
Right in the spot we've already labeled as dead.
And that quietness is probably why we miss it so often.
Yeah, it is. If you compare the magnitude of your problem, this huge, immovable stump of grief or debt, to a single, vulnerable green sprout, your rational mind just dismisses it.
It's meaningless.
It feels meaningless. It doesn't solve the problem.
This is where I want to push back a little on the metaphor.
Yeah.
Why is it so crucial that the first sign is small and fragile? I mean, if I'm facing a catastrophic loss, a tiny little shoot could almost feel insulting.
Like a distraction.
Yeah, distraction from the real structural collapse.
And that's a fair and necessary challenge. But the shoot's smallness, I think, forces a redefinition of what success looks like.
How so?
If the universe just immediately restored the whole tree, we wouldn't need trust. We'd just need observation.
You just see it.
We'd just see it.
Yeah.
But the small shoot, it requires nurturing. It requires belief. It tells us that the foundational work, the restoration of the roots, it starts internally,
Yeah.
quietly. It demands that you engage with the possibility, not the finished outcome.
So the shoot carries the blueprint.
It carries the full genetic code of the future tree, even if it looks ridiculously insignificant right now.
So the small scale is less about minimizing the problem and more about maximizing our required action. We can't regrow the whole tree.
But we can nurture the shoot.
I see.
Exactly. The most powerful insights are the ones we overlook because they aren't loud enough. The shoot is proof that life hasn't been completely extinguished.
Yeah.
But it's a proof that requires intentionality to even find.
Which brings us perfectly to the practical application. If the stump is the reality and the shoot is this quiet beginning, what is the action required from us to bridge that gap?
The invitation, as the source frames it, is not to miraculously generate the shoot yourself. It's simply to notice it.
Just to see it.
To see it. It demands a shift in focus from the overwhelming mass of the stumps, the loss, the pain, to scanning for that one small sign of life.
I think that shift of focus is extraordinarily difficult, though, especially when the stump feels so loud and demanding. If you're overwhelmed by anxiety, the anxiety is the loudest thing in the room.
Of course.
So how does the text guide us to overcome that emotional inertia?
It gives us two very focused reflection questions. They're like tools for active observation, not passive despair.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is, what in my life still holds the possibility of growth?
Still holds. I like that emphasis.
That word still forces you to challenge that mental category of finished project. You have to search for potential, not just wreckage.
And the second question?
The second is just as potent, and it deals with the immediate moment. What small sign of grace is present even now?
So it moves the search from some future potential to a present reality.
And this is where the examples in the source become so deeply relatable. The shoot isn't always something dramatic. It might be a rediscovered gift.
What do you mean?
Maybe a talent or an interest you thought you lost during a period of illness, and it suddenly, quietly resurfaces. Just a tiny creative impulse that doesn't fix the whole problem, but it gives you a moment of focus.
Yeah.
Or a quiet relationship. If you're dealing with betrayal, the source points out the shoot might be that steadfast, caring friendship that you've sort of started to take for granted because it's constant, not chaotic.
It's the gentle support offered at just the right time, a moment of unsolicited kindness that doesn't solve the financial crisis, but it reminds you that you are not isolated in your struggle.
Or maybe even simpler.
Or maybe it's just a moment of genuine, quiet prayer or mindfulness, a tiny flicker of spiritual connection when you felt utterly cut off.
These signs are so easily dismissed, aren't they? If you're facing the crushing weight of addiction, a single moment of clarity on a walk can feel, well, insignificant.
Of course.
So you want the full sobriety, the full relationship, the full bank account, not the hint of it.
And that's the psychological trap. We minimize the small sign because it doesn't match the scale of our desire. The source reminds us that while the shoot is insignificant compared to the struggle, it is absolutely essential because it carries the entire promise of future vitality. It is the proof that the root system, though it's battered and buried, is not yet dead.
So the core requirement is allowing the growth, not manufacturing the solution. We have to create the conditions for this fragile beginning to succeed.
Yeah.
What does the text say about the mindset we need to nurture it?
This is, for me, maybe the most empathetic line in the entire source. And it is key to making this practical.
Okay.
It notes that renewal does not demand that we feel hopeful. That is too high a bar when you are standing next to a massive stump.
It's an impossible ask.
It's an impossible ask. Instead, it only demands that we make room for hope to take root.
That reframes the entire task. You don't have to force optimism.
No.
You just have to acknowledge the sliver of possibility and give it a little attention. It's an act of acknowledgement, not emotional coercion.
Precisely. If you are honest about that small sign, that moment of grace, that rediscovered gift, and you give it light and water and protection, you are fulfilling the requirement. You're trusting the biological imperative of life, even when your rational mind tells you the environment is dead.
You nurture the shoot.
And you trust the shoot to grow into the branch.
This has been such a grounding deep dive. The central insight is so elegantly simple, but so profoundly difficult to practice.
It is.
Hope begins precisely where we think life has already ended. It's not about restoring the past majesty, but about protecting the vulnerable, small, new life that's emerging from the wreckage.
It's a powerful invitation to shift our perspective from monumental grief to a miniature miracle. The devastation, the stump, isn't the end of the story. It's just the environment that makes the emergence of the shoot so astonishing.
It teaches us that the resources for renewal are often hidden, not absent.
So the job then is to choose what we focus on, the weight of the stump or the vitality of the sprout.
And that leads us to the final challenge for you, the listener.
We've analyzed the fragility and the promise of that beginning. Now that you know where to look and you understand the difference between required emotion and required action, will you trust enough to nurture the small beginnings? Will you allow your shoot of hope to grow? That is the real test of application.